Perfect. Okay, so the problem is, if I stand in a room full of realtors and lenders, by the way, and I ask who here is an advisor, everybody says that they're an advisor. But the truth is, when we think about being an advisor, when we think about what we do, a lot of us have not been an advisor for the past 5 years. Because for the past 5 years, it's been very easy, right? You don't really need to explain much to your clients. You simply need to get them through the transaction, and that's it. Because buying real estate was a no-brainer. But that's not the case anymore. Over the past 5 years, things have changed a lot, where now we really need to sell the value of real estate. And it's now, with this lawsuit, sell the value of what you bring to the table, not just in the next 30 days on this transaction, but for the next 30 years.
You know, I can't look at what's going on right now and not think back to a time in my past. And when I was 10 years old, my father lost his business and we were plunged into poverty, and we couldn't afford food. It was brutal. And as a young boy, I always wanted kids for whatever reason. And as a young boy, sorry, screwed that up. As a young boy, I always wanted to make sure that my kids never knew need. All right. At 11 years old, I'm selling candy for lunch, to buy lunch, like literally selling candy. And that was my plan. Just my kids are never going to go need, and that's the way it's going to be. And that's the end of it. And here's what's interesting. A lot of times life doesn't really line up with your plans. And when 2008 happened, ladies, gentlemen, scared. I mean, to put it into perspective, we had 5,000 loan officers in Lee County. And when the dust settled, there were 97 of us left. So there was just shrapnel everywhere. And I remember at times taking my last dollars and buying food for my kids. I remember emptying out jars of coins to buy food for my kids. And I remember thinking, crap. Am I going to do to my kids what my father did to me? And I remember waking up one day with resolve. I remember waking up one day saying, screw this. I'm not going to let some outside influence, some outside force, something that I had no control over, take me down. I'm not going to let them hurt my kids. I don't give a shit. It's not happening. And now all of a sudden, when I looked around after I had a different mindset, I no longer see struggles. I no longer saw challenges. The only thing I saw were opportunities, endless opportunities. And man, now that I saw the opportunities, I was able to seize the opportunities. And seize them I did, because from 2010 to 2015, I grew my business from $5 million a year to $25 million a year at a time when loan amounts were often 5 digits. And guys, I share this story with you because I'm telling you right now, amongst all the fear and all the other crap out there, there is opportunity everywhere. And I'm sorry, all the conversations that people are having are wrong. Okay, everybody's pontificating about what may or may not happen in July, or talking about analyzing what the lawsuit means, or crying, woe is me. Look, none of that shit matters. Let's find the opportunities, and let's make sure the next 5 years in your career are the best they've ever been. Because following the 2008 crash was the best 5 years of my career. And that's what we're going to talk about today, folks, how to get tactical.
Okay, so we're going to talk about implementation, okay? Because that's what we're talking about. When we look at everybody talking about the lawsuit, they're talking about things that they can control. They're talking about their feelings about the lawsuit, which at this point, it's irrelevant. And they're talking about, they're becoming experts on what's happening with the lawsuit. What is actually the lawsuit? That's also somewhat irrelevant if you don't have a plan of attack, if you don't have a plan of action. Before we start, I just want to set the right mindset when it comes to this. And this is something that I heard and I like, which is the definition of intelligence and operational intelligence. Operational intelligence is changing behavior with the same circumstances. If I show you a red card and I slap you, you'll be like, whoa. If I don't say anything and I show you the red card again and I slap you again, you'll be like, whoa. But if I show you the red card the third time, you're going to duck, okay? Because you're changing your behavior with the same environment. If it takes somebody 10 red cards for them to change their behavior, then they're less intelligent. What I like about this is, what this tells me is that I can control my intelligence because it's simply changing behavior with the same environment. A lot of us think that we're very smart, but then we go about our business with the same behavior in the same environment, and we expect change. So make sure that here we just focus about implementation, because knowledge without implementation is not intelligent. We're only going to talk about implementation. So the first thing that you need to do is the call.
Look, and folks, this is the lowest hanging fruit that is sitting in front of us right now. This is crazy. We need to call everybody on this webinar needs to call every single buyer you have. Everybody who's on the fence, everybody who said they're going to wait, everybody who said now's not the right time, everybody who is actively shopping, every single buyer that has not closed, you need to call them with a simple script. Hey, John, it's Scott with ABC Realty. Listen, I don't know if you heard, but there's a big lawsuit that just got settled. And it's very possible, John, that if you buy a house after July, your out-of-pocket expense may go up by thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And I wanted to make you aware of that to see if we can possibly start looking at houses and get you ahead of that curve. Look, the team and I made 170 phone calls a couple of weeks ago and shook loose almost 30 people. We got 30 people that were they were on the fence, out there actively shopping again with that script. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a quick call, low-hanging fruit, and it's where everybody needs to start this process for sure.
People want to buy houses. You just need to give them the excuse on why now and not later. And right now, we have a specific thing that's going to happen that can bring that sense of urgency. So make sure that you call, don't text, don't email, make those phone calls. All right, the next thing is going to be the research. That's step number 2. That's something that you need to do too. Now, this is the beauty of it. We did this already with all of our clients, and this is how we created a presentation. But you need to make sure that you call your clients and you have a lot of understanding on a couple of things. Number 1, you need to have your own stats, because now that there's perceived value, and when we're talking about value, it needs to be something that's quantifiable, something that you can show your buyers. You need to tell them, look, while the market right now has houses going to 96% of asking price, me, in average, I have my houses, or the houses that my buyers buy, be at 95% of asking price. So that's what I bring to the table. While most people get, X amount of the appraisals, my clients, the appraisals go up, are 2% or 5% over their asking price. Make sure that you collect that data so you can show it to your buyers. The other thing is, ask them questions. Start with the easy questions like, hey, what are the things that you would say I did great or that helped you with this transaction? How would you refer me to somebody, and what would you tell them? But also ask the tough questions. What are the things that I didn't teach you that you learned? Or what are the things that I didn't teach you that you wish I would have told you? And look, the punchline here, and the thing that you need to do, is please make sure that you document this, and if you can, record it. And it's easy. Get on a Zoom call with your clients, ask them these questions, and what we're going to do for you is, for the first 10 people that send us this recording, we're going to put together basically a little trailer, a little reel of all of your clients singing your praises and saying why you should be the one in the corner of every client you talk to. Oops.
Awesome. Okay. Look, the next thing we got to talk about is what your value is. Look, here's the thing, okay? When I talk to agents and I ask them what their value, why should I use you over the other 20,000 agents, in and around Southwest Florida? Guys, I got to be honest with you, man, the answers are terrible. I hear things like I build rapport. I hear things like I'm good with people. I provide great service. I provide great communication. All of that is completely intangible and frankly the wrong answer, because the question has to be, what value am I going to bring to the table that may be worth $12,000 to you, or $15,000 or $8,000? And folks, that's a vastly, vastly different thing. And one of the things, one of the answers I hate the worst is, when things go wrong, I'm there to fix it. So think about what we're telling people. Hey, if you use me to make one of the biggest decisions, the biggest purchases of your entire life, one of the biggest wealth building decisions of your entire life, it's going to break. But don't worry, when it breaks, I got you. Folks, we've got to do better than that. And I got to tell you, that list from NAR with those 91 things is terrible. we need to be very clear on what our value is. And as we go through the rest of our time together today, we're going to have a clear answer on that question.
And look, the thing is not what you're saying, but how you're saying. And that's why the buyer presentation, it's extremely important. It's more important now than it's ever been. And look, the presentation that we put together, couple things that you need to know about this. One, it's a presentation that, by the way, if you send us all of your clients are going to go through this presentation. So you can basically check out of this webinar, you're good. If you don't send us all your clients, then you need to reconsider how you go about business and start sending us all your clients. But no, in all reality is the presentation has influence objectives signed into this. An influence objective is what you need to have in every single conversation that you have with a client. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to do a lot of things for the clients, but we also want to make sure that when they leave that conversation, when they leave that presentation, they leave thinking, oh my God, I cannot go through this process without him or her. And these are the 8 influence objectives that we are purposely putting into this presentation. And we're going to show you how each slide of the presentation is going to hit on these 8 influence objectives.
Okay. Now, the first thing we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we got to understand that the people we're dealing with are being driven by a really strong emotion. And that emotion is fear. Okay. And, there's a book I read called Let's Get Real, Let's Not Play. And it talked about the yellow lights in the sales process. And the premise of the book is when a yellow light pops up, while most salespeople try to shy away from it, what the book was telling you is to lean into it. And ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what we need to do with the fear that people are facing, because there's a lot of people facing a lot of fear, and the fear is appropriate. And the only way to overcome that fear is by going over data and stats. Ed?
Now, this is the thing. When it comes to real estate, like I said before, people were extremely excited about buying real estate 5 years ago, 4 years ago. It was sexy. It was the thing to do. Now, after the rates have gone up, there's a lot of fear around real estate, and there's a lot of fear that the market is going to crash. If you look at this is crazy. 44% of Americans think that the housing market is going to crash. How many times have you heard your clients go, you know what, I'm just going to wait after the election, after blah, blah, blah. The prices have gone up, so they have to go down. What is your response to that? So before they even ask you those questions, we need to start by presenting how sexy real estate is today. And you need to believe that real estate, it's still the best way to build wealth in America. Because if you don't believe in that, you as an agent, it's going to be very hard for you to communicate this. And the truth is, we sell the best product in the best place in the world, and we need to be screaming about this. Check out this chart. Since 1942, houses have only gone down 7 years. Only 7 years. And out of those, and just one time, it didn't go up and it didn't go down. So historically, yes, I understand, Mr. Buyer, that it feels like this is a very weird time because the economy is weird, because there's the election year and all that. But since 1942, there has been a lot of weird times too. But real estate have always been, what we call here, has always been the champ. The other thing that I like to point out to my clients here is that, look, I understand why, if something goes up a lot, you feel like it has to go down. The fact that you feel that way doesn't mean that that's the reality. If you look at these numbers, from 1944 all the way to 1947, prices went up from 17% all the way to 24% on those years. Now, what followed after that? It didn't continue to go up at 20%, but it continued to go up at 3%, 4%, and it didn't see prices declining until 1990. And if you look again, in 1977, prices went up 15%, then 16%. And after that, it continued to go up, but just not at the same pace. What we need to tell our clients is, hey, historically, what you're going to do if you wait is miss out on the boat. Because if you can look at the last 5 years, nobody's glad that they didn't buy a house in the last 5 years. Make sure that you don't make that same mistake.
And the next thing we have to look at, and again, look, guys, this is real important that we have a data-driven sales approach, okay? Look, we live in an untrusting society. You don't trust the advertising you see. You don't trust the salespeople you speak to, but we expect people to believe us when they say, is now a good time to buy? And we say yes. It sounds like a sales pitch regardless of how sincere you're being. So we have to acknowledge a societal fact and show people data. So here's another thing of data. What this chart is showing is if you bought a house and sold it 10 years later, during any year would that have been a negative? And ladies and gentlemen, look at this. And to Ed's point about things being weird, look at what real estate did in the early 1940s, folks. You're in the middle of World War II. Like this is, I mean, you talk about a crazy time. Look, every single year but one, if you would have bought a house and sold it 10 years later, you would have made money. And look at how many of the numbers on that chart are triple digits. Year after year after year, you would have been more than doubled your money. In fact, there's only 1 year that it went down, and it went down 3%. So the question you got to ask yourself is, if you would have been renting all that time, how much would a house price, like how much more in the hole would you have been than that 3% drop? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Now, the next thing that we got to talk about, okay, so first thing, we're addressing the fear. Here's another piece of the fear, the payments, okay? Because I tell people that shopping around for purchase price and interest rate will move your payment by tens of dollars per month. But looking at things like taxes, insurance, flood insurance will move your payment by hundreds of dollars a month. Ladies and gentlemen, this script that I'm about to share with you is the reason I thrived in the 2008 aftermath, okay? And the script goes like this. Somebody calls me up and says, hey, Scott, I want to buy a house for $500,000 and put down 20%. What's my all-in payment? And the answer is, sir, I really don't know. For example, sir, are you aware of the fact that you could buy a house and the following year the taxes could double, triple, or more? Yeah, it has something to do with the Saber Homes Act, sir. What I'd like you to know, and guys, this is a value that you can provide to clients that is super tangible. Hey, Mr. Client, one of the things after explaining the way Saber Homes works and everything, one of the things I'm going to do for you is every single home that you're considering, I'm going to do a property tax analysis to make sure that you're not going to get blindsided with something. If the taxes are going to go up, it's not a reason to not buy the house. It's just something that you need to understand. So it is critically important that people shop around and select houses based on things like taxes, insurance, flood insurance, CDDs, HOAs, etc. It is absolutely critical.
Another thing that affects the payment that a lot of people don't know, and it's been more and more critical lately, it's insurances, right? Insurance, there's a couple things. There's the insurance that you need to have, and then there is the inspections that you need to make once you get under contract in order to be able to know what your insurance is. What's the roof gonna be like, and how is that gonna affect the insurance? Is that property in a flood zone or not? Can you be grandfathered into the flood zone of the current owner? Look, the bottom line here is show them all of this, not just tell them, show them. Teach them how to do this, because you want at the end of the day for them to leave with more knowledge than before they talk to you. But most importantly, you want to give away all the secrets and sell the implementation. And this is the implementation. The implementation is you're going to show them, okay, once I look for the taxes, the insurance, the HOAs, if there's a mortgage, the mortgage payments and all of these things, you are going to have a side-by-side comparison of the properties that you want to look at before you even step foot on a house. If the house has a mortgage, by the way, we're doing this with every single one of our clients. Why? Because number one, we want to make sure that by the time they step foot on the house, they are committed that that house, if the payments are where they want them to be, it's a house that they're going to put an offer in. We don't want them to waste a lot of time. Number two, we want them to have all the financial information they need when they look at the house and when they look at the other in order to be able to make a decision. Because at the end of the day, guys, we look for houses visually, we fall in love with houses emotionally, but the decision to buy a house, it's a financial decision. Because of that financial decision, it's the only reason I don't live in a house in Port Royal. Okay, because I can look at it visually and I love it. I fall in love with it emotionally, but financially, it just doesn't make sense for me. So make sure that you do that even if there isn't any lending there, because you need to do that with the HOAs and with everything that has to do with keeping up with that property.
And look, we need to understand too that there's huge misconceptions out there. I speak to client after client and goes, yeah, I know insurance in Florida now is through the roof. Ladies and gentlemen, insurance is through the roof for some houses. I had a contract call 2 days ago with the client. He's under contract for $420,000. We got an insurance quote for him for $1,506 a year, $125,000, $125 a month on a home that's almost $500,000 is not expensive insurance. Insurance is expensive on some homes. One of the value props that you're going to provide is guiding people towards the houses that don't have super high insurance. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to create FOMO. What do I mean by FOMO? Fear of missing out, but fear of missing out on buying real estate today. And more importantly, fear of missing out on buying real estate today with you. And that's the critical step, ladies and gentlemen, that we have to factor in.
This, guys, is the buy down strategy. What's the fear of a lot of people? A lot of people are afraid that they're not going to be able to, A, qualify for the house that they want, or number two, that the payment is going to be too high. This is the thing. There is a solution for that problem. And I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to be real with my realtors here. The only reason why the buy down strategy, it's not just used everywhere. It's because we need the real estate community and the lending community to be able to understand it and to be able to explain it. Why? Because it requires not only our buyers and our realtors and our lenders to be able to implement this, but we also need to make sure that we explain it properly to the listing agent and to the sellers.
So look, this is a real world scenario. I had a client that wanted to put in an offer on this property, okay? The home was listed for $359,000, and he's like, Scott, I'm going to put it off for $20,000 below. The agent said it wasn't going to work, so this is what I did, okay? And look, just to frame this right, this is the type of value that you could provide that people will pay for, okay? So what I did was this. On the left-hand side, I showed $359,000, 20% down, what his payment was. Then on the next column, I said, okay, your offer, what you're trying to do with the $20,000 price reduction, same down payment, same interest rate, is only going to save you $109 a month. And folks, let's be honest, that doesn't matter, right? Nobody says, man, if I had an extra $100 this month, I'd be good. That's ridiculous. What we showed them then, the third option was a buy down. The buy down was this: offer the $359,000. Ask the seller to give you back 3%. I could use that 3% and buy your interest rate down permanently from 7.25 in this example to 5.25. Now we're showing a payment savings of over $370 a month.
Now, the punchline here is that if you were to equate, if you were to look at that payment, what is the equivalent to that payment? That payment is the same as if the property dropped $69,000 in price. So basically, this buyer, it's paying for this property as if it was only priced at $290,000. Show them that. Tell them that your lender partner, Neo Home Loans, can give them this and can help them not only qualify for more, but have a much lower payment. This is how you can get a competitive advantage. And this is how, if you are saving me $375 a month forever, you're worth every penny.
And look, we got to understand too the implementation of this, because everybody hears buy down strategies, but they don't know how to do it. So here's an example of how we could use it to combat lowball offers. This is also in this example how we could use it to stretch somebody's qualifying limits, right? Let's say we had a person that was qualified for $290,000, but they wanted to buy a house for $360,000. This strategy increased their borrowing ability by $70,000. This is also fantastic to use in listing presentations, which we'll talk about in the next webinar. Now, the next thing we need to understand is what is the market versus you? And Ed touched on this earlier, and this is critical, okay? I understand what the market sale price to list price ratio is, but what is your sale price to list price ratio? Same thing with sales price versus appraised value. Same thing with acceptance rate. We have to take the time to educate, okay? Really sit down and go through this. When we're talking about months of inventory, I speak to so many clients that think Florida's on sale. I'm putting in offers for 70 cents on the dollar. Homeboy, homes are selling for 97% of asking price. But if you say that it's a sales pitch, if you show it to them, it's different. We need to educate people on what is a buyer's market, a seller's market, a neutral market. Okay, and I've seen our months of inventory on single family homes this year be as high as 8.8 and as low as 4.4. So it's all over the board. So this is data we need to pull up on a very regular basis.
The other thing we need to get them afraid of, or fear of missing out, is to not buy today, okay? We talked about buying in the past and why buying in the past made a lot of sense, but why does it make sense to buy in the future? Look, this is easy, right? We need to tell them, you need to buy here and not somewhere else, especially if they're coming from all the other places, is because here is the best investment. Prices are going to continue to go up because there's going to be too much competition. How do I know there's too much competition? Two things. Number one, what Scott calls the great migration, right? All of these people from all the other states coming into Florida. This area, Lee County, Charlotte County, and Collier County, is expected to grow between 23 and 31% over the next 25 years. That's going to put pressure on prices. And then number two, and look, I'm not proud of this stat, but that's okay. People between age of 18 and 24, or 34, 18 and 34 are still living at their parents' house. What this means is everything that we talk about. Oh, Florida is special. Why is it special? Because it's growing. Oh, there's pent-up demand. Why is there pent-up demand? Because everybody's still living at their parents' house, meaning all of these people have to move out, and it's going to keep the prices going up. This is what we expect prices to go up in Lee County and in Collier County. Show them not just with percentages, but show them with a dollar figure.
And by the way, it's so critical, the showing part of it, okay? Because again, we have to put data in front of people, not to convince them, but so that they can make an informed decision, because there are too many people walking around who are making decisions based on something they heard on TikTok or something they heard on NBC or any of the other news channels, Fox or any of them. It's all the same thing. So what this shows, this is a chart that we show 100% of the people we sit down with. Here is the forecasted appreciation rates over the next handful of years in both Lee County and Charlotte County, or Collier County, and this is absolutely critical. The other thing we have to have them understand is how expensive it is to not buy. And when we start showing historical appreciation and forecasted appreciation rates, everything changes for the better in people's minds.
The next step, or the next influence objective, is clarity of the process. A lot of people, and look, guys, again, we created this because we started asking all the questions about things that our clients didn't know. We need to make sure that the clients know exactly what to expect, because this is a scary transaction. And because it's a scary transaction, people don't know what to expect. If we just tell them, look, these are the timelines and this is what you're going to expect, it's a lot easier to go through it. So make sure that you sit with your client. We don't need to go over all of this, but you need to go over all of this with your clients, because it may be second nature to you, but trust me when I tell you, even somebody that has bought 20 houses in their lifetime is not second nature to them. Go over every single thing and make sure that you also go over the timelines, because look, when it comes to buying a house, it feels like a crazy roller coaster. You go smooth for some sections, and then out of a sudden, they ask you for all your information, and you need to give all your information in the next 24 hours, or the world is going to end. And then you give all the information, and then everything stops again. And then you wait. And then we need all your information again. You need to sign title, you need to do inspections, you need to do all these things, and then you wait. That's why it's stressful. Rather than just going, that's how it works. Tell them how many days are from one thing to the other, so that they can look at that calendar and go, okay, this is normal that I haven't heard anything. It's okay. Just show them.
Look, folks, this is a big misconception. Okay, we bring a lot of new loan offices into the business, and we talk to a ton of people, and there's this big misconception that, oh, he's bought 7 houses before, so he knows. Oh, he's very, very wealthy, so he knows. Ladies and gentlemen, get that out of your head. I'm telling you right now, they don't. I cannot tell you how many people I go through a consultation with, and they go, man, Scott, I bought 11 houses in the past, and I've learned more from you in the last hour than I had buying the previous 11 homes. Assume everybody before you did not do the job. Now, there's a question on the screen. I want everybody to put their answer in the chat, which I don't know if we can see the chat.
Yeah, but we can.
Okay. What do you think is the client's primary emotion upon offer acceptance? Everybody do me a favor. Throw their answer in the chat real quick.
We give 30 seconds. Let's go. We have buyer and seller's remorse. We have, oh shit. Oh my God. Fear, remorse, regret, remorse. Man, a lot of remorse. A lot of regret. A lot of regret.
All right. So you guys completely screwed up my punchline in this. Normally when I ask this to an audience where I'm speaking, usually what I hear is excitement, jubilation, blah, but you guys are correct. You guys are 100% correct. It's fear. Fear is the primary emotion that people are feeling, because, oh my goodness, did I buy the right house? Am I going to get approved for the loan? Is something going to go on the inspection? Should I have sold my house now? Do I have to tell my landlord I'm like, it's just fear. So we have a solution for that we have to understand that one of our jobs, our 4th influence objective, and guys, this is one of the biggest. Our 4th influence objective is this. We need to remove every possible stress point. There are too many people walking around in this industry going, that's just the way it is. No, bullshit. We can do better than that, okay? And the way we have to do that is we have to think through what are the steps, okay? And the first step is a contract call. Now, we do those in our business, and they're basically unheard of in the mortgage industry. I don't know why. But we want to get proactive with that, because the way it normally works is amongst all that fear, boom, here's 47 disclosures you have to sign. Like that is not how we win friends and influence people, okay? So we need to remove every possible stress point. So you got to make a contract acceptance call, a home, like a post-inspection call, an appraisal review call, a loan approval call. All of those calls have to be made.
Now, important that you also tell them that you are going to make those calls. Tell your clients, hey, a lot of people get very afraid when this happens. I don't know if that's going to be you, but once we get under contract, we're going to have another presentation where we're going to go over everything. Once you get the inspection, we're going to have another meeting where we go over the inspections. When you get the appraisal, we're going to go over the appraisal. Like, tell them that you're going to do that. That way you can take that fear away from them. And when you're competing with other agents, when the other agents ask you, hey, are you going to do this for me? When the client asks the other agents, hey, what is your strategy for this? Their answer is not going to be the same as if you tell them in advance and you look prepared. Okay, this is where I think we really, really can shine as advisors. Let me tell you, I'm originally from Colombia, and in Colombia, you're either a lawyer, a doctor, or a failure. That's it. Those are your three options. And since my dad was a lawyer, I wanted to become a doctor. And I came to America with these big dreams of becoming a doctor or a baseball player. That didn't work out. But guess what? The doctor thing didn't work out either. And when I graduated with my biology degree, which was useless, I felt like a failure. I felt like I let down my wife, which we were married at the time. And I felt like I let down my kids and also my parents. When I was waiting tables, I don't know how this happened to me, but I was able to buy a house. And buying a house for me represented the first adult and financial win of my life. And I thought to myself, man, this is the American dream. But this is the thing. That was not the American dream. Buying a house is just going through the process of getting that ticket. But the American dream is everything else that can get unlocked because you bought a house. Buying a house can create a lot of opportunities that most people don't have without buying a house. And that's the real American dream. And I made it my mission to make sure that I don't just push people through the process and just don't mess up. I actually help people achieve their American dream of changing their life because of that house. And the truth is, the reason I tell you this is because we all focus on those 30 days. But where we can actually flex and we can actually show the advice and we can actually change people's lives, it's the 30 years after that purchase. So make sure that you spend some time, and we're going to show you how we not only spend some time on this after contract, after purchase, but we also invested in the systems that we have in place. And that's what we're going to show you. We're going to show you the systems that we have in place that you should have in place too. By the way, if you use us, then you don't have to, because we give you those systems. But the systems that you need to have in place for people to not just win those 30 days, but to win home ownership, because that's where the real money is made.
And look, after closing, there's so much that goes on, okay? We need to have a post-closing call, and all the things on the screen, we actually have reports for every one of those bullet points that we send out to our clients now. And it is absolutely critical that we're not staying in touch with freaking recipes and stuff, staying in touch with tangible things that they could actually implement and move the needle in their financial life. Because what Ed said is right. Buying a house opens the door to the American dream, but we don't believe that is in and of itself the American dream. However, buying a home and leveraging it properly is in fact the American dream, because 81% of people retiring in America today have 100% of their net worth in their home's equity. So let's talk about what that looks like, okay? If you think about what happens after closing, right after closing, clients embark on the third most stressful thing in a person's life, which is moving, okay? We need to do something to address that. So this is our relocation technology, okay, that we use. I'm sure there's others out there that you can find on your own. But from this app, I'm able to tell clients, listen, when you go under contract with me, I'm going to give you our relocation app. From that app, you can manage your entire move. You can shop, you can transfer utilities, you can change your voter registration ID. It gives you directions for that. You can forward your mail, you can download moving lists, packing lists, all of this stuff. This is a critical value add that people really, really appreciate, and we have to focus on when we're working with people. The next thing that we want to do is we want to give them something. Look, I want to share with you something that when I heard it, it permanently altered the way I look at things, okay? And again, I never questioned this because it's just the way it's done. But once I started questioning and I realized that the way it's done is unacceptable, and here's what I mean. You think about what happens at closing. We give people the largest, in most cases, the largest asset of their lives, the largest source of wealth in their lives. I've already shared that statistic, and the largest debt of their lives. And then we're like, congratulations. And we walk out of their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing? And I know some of you are like, no, you don't understand. They send recipe. Look, that is a marketing effort to get more money, to get another commission check down the road. Let's be honest. What was on my mind when I heard that was that we need to provide actual tangible tools to help them manage that asset, that wealth, and that debt. And this tool here, HomeBinder, that we provide to all of our clients, that's co-branded, is the tool to help them manage this asset. Okay, if you think of the only difference between buying and renting, the only difference is maintenance. Because when you rent, you got to come up with first, last, and security. You could call that a down payment, and then you got to make a monthly rent payment versus a monthly mortgage payment. The only difference is, okay, when something breaks in my office that I'm leasing, I send an email to my landlord. If something breaks in one of my properties, I'm writing a check and meeting a plumber or fixing whatever. So one of the things this system does is it sends proactive maintenance reminders. Most people maintain their house reactively, meaning when something breaks, they fix it. Problem with that is twofold. Number one, it's the most expensive way to do it. And number two, I don't know about you, that crap always comes at the worst possible time. It also checks for appliance recalls. You can manage all of the home improvements you do. So down the road, when you're ready to sell, you can print out a seller's report that lists every nickel you ever spent on the house, who you spent it with, and what you spent it on. And that is how we can tell people in advance that we're going to help them maximize the resale value of that asset. Now, here's the next thing we go over with people.
Then we have the financial aspect of things, because again, this is where the real money is made. And by the way, we have co-branded shareables that we have on everything that has to do with managing that property post-closing. Things like, hey, what does it mean to buy a house with a 1031 exchange? We can co-brand that. We have it for your clients. We can share that with you. Things like, do you have to pay capital gains? Things like, after 2 years, you don't have to pay capital gains. How do you take advantage of that? Things like, how can I pass the property to my kids? All of those things are shareables that we can share with you. Actually, at the end, we're going to have a QR code for a meeting, and we can send you all of those shareables with your brand and everything for you. Anyways, we send every single client a real estate report card. And this is the thing. This real estate report card goes over a couple of things, and don't roll your eyes just yet. Okay, it's going to tell them what the value of their property is. So every single month they expect the value of their property. It's also going to tell them, hey, you paid this much in interest, this much in principal. If you make these extra payments towards the principal, you can save this much throughout the life of the loan. And it tells them, listen, a property like this can rent for this much on Airbnb on a monthly basis, on a daily basis. This is the expectation of how many days you can expect this house to rent. And if you were to reinvest the gains, this is how much you would save over the life of the loan. Now, the beauty with this thing is that on top where you see the $401,000 there, if you click on tune value, it sends a request to you as a realtor to get a CMA or to send a CMA to your client. So we teach every single one of our clients that every 6 months, they need to click on that tune value, because while that number is okay, there's really no machine that right now can understand what a CMA, what a proper CMA is, as much as you, the real estate agent. So every 6 months, that client is prompted to click on that thing and you get a CMA request. What a great thing for you to tell your clients, look, every 6 months, I'm going to give you a CMA, and we're going to have a proper annual review on what your property looks like, what it can rent for, what it could sell for, and how you can take advantage of this property in order to invest on other properties. That's worth a lot more than just the Thanksgiving recipes that most of us send or used to send.
Okay, now, although this is very sexy from a client standpoint, it is. I think the business piece of this is the best. If you guys look on your screen under the 30-day performance, the open rate on these things are over 80%. Okay, it is absolutely astounding. What does that tell me? tells me one thing, the only thing I wanted to tell me, which is my clients find this crazy valuable. Okay, now let's take the customer service hat off and put the sales hat on. Okay, out of my 436 clients on the screen, 51 of them have turned themselves into buyers. And if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, ladies and gentlemen, every time somebody clicks on something, I know exactly what they're clicking on, and I can follow up with them to provide them with service. This is the greatest database management tool that's ever been out there, and it's something that people need to absolutely leverage in their business.
Okay, so that's what your presentation needs to look like. Now, there is a piece of you in order to be able to continue to be in front of your clients that need to be reactive. We don't like this because we don't want to be reactive. As you see, everything that we want to do is proactive. However, we have a system that's going to tell us every time that your client lists a property for sale and they didn't call us, every time that your client gets their credit pulled, every time that they get a kid, they graduate, they get divorced, all of those behaviors that might make your client or that might prompt your client to buy or sell, we're going to get alerted and you're going to get alerted. You need to make sure that to crush it in this post-settlement world, that you are in front of your clients at the time that they need you, and these are the times that they need you the most.
Okay, now speaking of need, okay, we also need to do a proper needs versus wants analysis. Now, look, let me frame this up for you guys. It is intentional that we put this at number 6 because I realize most agents do this at number 1. But if you think through the psychology of what we're helping you implement in your business right now, by the time we get to needs versus wants, we've done a couple of important things. Number 1, you've demonstrated that you're unlike any real estate professional they've ever spoken to before. You've also been open with them and built up enough rapport at this point that when you're going to have a needs versus wants conversation with them, you're going to be able to do it in such a way that it's more meaningful. And look, we need to understand that there are difficult conversations we want to have. I want to share a quick story with you. I was on a Zoom call with a husband and a wife, and she was pregnant. And he was a pastor. He relocated here to be a pastor of his church. And one of the members of his church said, look, my house is vacant for 6 months. You can live in there for like $1,200 a month. So, well, he was 4 months into the 6 months, and he was starting to look around to buy a house. And I asked the wife what her plans was for the baby. They were having their first baby. I love children. It's cool. And she gave me an answer I didn't want to hear. What she told me was, I'm going to take about 6 months off of work and take care of my baby. I always wanted to have a baby. And the reason why I didn't want to hear that, folks, is because I knew that on just his income, they couldn't afford to buy, nor could they afford to rent. And I realized that I was going to have to take them through a very difficult conversation. So I started laying the groundwork, right? I want to be gentle with this. And finally, we get to a point where it dawned on her where we were going. And she physically pulled back from the screen. Her eyes filled up with tears. And she looked at me and she said, I'm not going to have that time with my baby, am I? And I said, ma'am, unless you can find another member of your church to give you the same kind of deal as the first one, I don't see how it's going to be possible, because on your husband's income alone, you can't afford to buy or rent. And I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you that, but I want to be upfront with you. And she broke down crying and buried her head in her husband's arms. I sat there for a couple minutes, my heart breaking. And when they pulled apart and she kind of regained her composure, he looked up at the screen, and ladies and gentlemen, he was pissed. And at first I'm like, oh man, he's mad at me. And he looks at me and he goes, I am thoroughly pissed off right now. I said, sir, I can see that. And I don't blame you. He goes, you know what I'm pissed off the most about? I was pre-approved 5 years ago for $250,000 on an FHA loan, and there were homes that met my need back then. And I listened to some Dave Ramsey thing who said that if I can't put down a big down payment, that I have no right buying a house. And I thought to myself, he's a lot smarter about money than I am. What am I doing? I'm going to bail out. And then he said to me something that I'll never forget. He said, I wish the people I was working with back then pushed me harder. Look, there's a lot of people that are on this webinar thinking to themselves, I'm not a pushy salesman, like it's a badge of honor. Look, there are times that we need to nudge in a market like this. As long as we're doing it with a pure heart, we are good. So I share that story with you because I want you to know that when you're having a needs versus wants conversation, folks, we need to get uncomfortable. Because when the conversation gets uncomfortable is when we could really start to get inside their heads and understand what's going on. Because there's so many people that think that what they need is actually what they want. I need a pool. Now, without a medical problem, you don't need a pool. You may want a pool. Great news. You can put one in after closing. Maybe there's a neighborhood community pool that you could use depending on where you buy.
Find a
There's a
friend
lot
with a
of
pool.
What was that?
Find a friend with a
Yeah,
pool.
find a friend with a pool. So we need to have not just the basics needs in Vaughn's conversation. We need to get uncomfortable and we need to talk about how you could achieve the goals after closing. Now, when we're done with these first 6 steps, it brings us to our buyer's representation agreement. Now, here's the deal. I'm not getting into the details of this, okay? Nobody knows what's going to happen in July. All of you guys are going to have your own forms and your brokerages are going to, require whatever they're going to require. So we have this in here just as a place marker. So when you're doing this presentation to clients, that this is the point where we feel that you could bring forth the buyer's representation agreement because you have now properly demonstrated that the value you're going to provide and the difference you're going to make and the pitfalls you're going to help them avoid throughout the process. Now
you have to really, after you deliver that presentation and you tell them everything you're going to do, you need to continue to kill it once they actually get in the weeds of getting into the contract and all those things. One of the biggest things that we do is our gifting strategy that I think it's the best strategy that I've seen. And this is something that we stole from Disney, right? Because look, everybody gets a nice gift at closing. That's great. The problem is when everybody does it, is expected. And when something is expected, it loses value. What we want to do here is to increase the value that we bring to the table. So instead of just giving a gift at closing, how about you sprinkle those gifts throughout the transaction? Disney did a study where they asked people to take a survey throughout their experience at the park. So, finding parking lot, 6, too many people in the parking lot. Getting in line, 6. Too many people in line, it's too hot. Getting into the, buying the food, 5. Too expensive, right? Like all these things, and they had to market. What they did is, at the end, 30 days later, they asked them to rate their overall experience. And this is the thing. Their overall experience was much higher, was a 9 and a 10 compared to the actual average of their experience throughout the park. Why? Because even though you can't control certain things, like the weather being too hot or like the line being too long, you can control the wins. And if you celebrate the wins, if the fireworks are big enough and grandiose enough, what they're going to remember about the whole experience, it's going to be great. They're not going to remember the bad parts. They're only going to remember how amazing the high parts were. So pick during the transaction, where is that we can win. For example, what we do here is at the initial approval, if we have somebody that has kids under the age of 8, we send them the Bernstein Bears moving day book. Why? Because we tell them with a little note saying, hey, we know how stressful moving is. It can be very stressful for the little ones too. I read this to my kids when we move. I hope it helps. That's powerful and that creates a connection and it's not expected. We also send them cookies at their place of work after the first approval. Why? Because they're not expecting that. They're afraid. They don't know what's happening in the transaction and boom, congratulations, your loan is approved. Here's the cookies. And then, because we know that you guys take care of everything at the closing, 30 days after closing, we send them a nice present at their house. Why? Because we want them to feel that it's not, hey, we got our check and we gave you a gift. No. It's afterwards, we're still with you. This relationship is still going to continue. By the way, all these gifts that we send, because now more than ever, the relationship between the agent and the lender, it's going to be more important than ever. We need to band together. We don't send any of these presents without putting you at the forefront of everything. If you look at the cutting board, for example, we put your name and your logo, not just ours. Because one thing I've learned is it's a lot harder to leave 2 people than to leave 1 person. So we want to make sure that we present ourselves as a unit. We give this presentation as a unit, not just as, oh, that's Ed's or Scott's presentation. This is You're buying team's presentation, and you guys are quarterbacking this presentation. Guys, I'm so excited about what's going to happen with this lawsuit, because I think that this is going to elevate our game. I think that the ones that are willing to change the behavior with this set of circumstances are going to get better, and together we're going to get a bigger piece of the pie. I'm excited to jump into this with you guys.
All right, so look. We have a QR code up on your screen. Okay, here's what we want to do. We want to give everybody their own personalized buyer presentation deck. So if you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a link where you can set up a meeting with either Ed or I. The system will kind of flip back and forth. And we're going to be able to provide you with your own personalized buyer presentation deck, as well as all of the other deliverables that apply to you that we talked about. And then equally importantly, is if there's some of the topics we've gone over today that you want to dive deeper on, we want to go deep on those topics with you. Okay, we wanted to make sure that in an appropriate amount of time we kind of gave an overview. But guys, think of your business. Think of the opportunity here. When you meet a buyer, think of the way you do it now, and think of what it would be like if this was their journey. If you sat down with the client on the front end, a buyer, and said, "This is how I'm going to work for you." And then you work for them, and then the gifts you don't tell them about in advance. The gifts are just a little present. Okay, it is absolutely, it is an absolutely different animal when you are running your business that way. And think of the way you're going to be able to get referrals. Think of the way you're going to be able to stay in touch with your database, ladies and gentlemen. This is the right way to run our business moving forward. What's that? Whoops. This is the right way to run your business moving forward. So scan those QR codes. We'll set up a quick 30 or 40 minute Zoom with you, and we'll take it from there. Okay. We have somebody raise their hands.
Yeah, I'm asking her what question she has.
Okay.
So, guys, again, let's not try to reinvent the wheel. We did all this work asking all the clients what they wish they would have known. We created the presentation, we created the follow-up, we created all this. Now it's just a matter of personalize it to your clients, to your needs, and to you. And again, we're gonna do it with every single one of the clients, because that's what's required in this new environment. I highly recommend that if you have a client, sit through this presentation, because it's different when it comes from both of us. Again, together, we're much stronger. Guys, it's all about implementing. So 2 takeaways here. Number 1, we send you, again, if you give us the first 10 people that give us the recordings, we're going to make a nice reel, we're going to edit it, and we're going to send it to you to be able to send it to your clients and to be able to make it a part of your own website and your presentation. Number 2, make sure that you schedule something, because if you schedule something with us, we're going to give you the presentation, co-branded, and give you all the follow-ups that we have so that we can kill it in this market. And then number 3, you're going to receive an email tomorrow with the next webinar, which is going to be next week, on the same presentation, but now for listing agents, and how you as a listing agent can take advantage of what's happening right now to increase your potential earnings and to take a bigger piece of the pie. All right, guys, we are an hour now. The question is, will today's meeting recording be sent to us? Yes, we're going to send you the recording. We're going to put it out. We're going to send an email to everybody that attended with the recording as well. I have Evia with a question. Evia, do you mind putting the question in the chat? I don't know if she raised her hand on purpose or not, but we'll send you those presentations. If we can't answer the question right now, make sure that you set up the meeting. We'll answer all your questions. We're all yours if we set up the meeting. Scott, say bye.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.